Hello and welcome back to The Red Path. Today, Dara and I are going to give you a little bit of a breakdown on our thoughts on the brand new Adeptus Mechanicus Codex and what the hell it really means for World Eaters. All right, Dara. Hello again. It's like we were just speaking a few moments ago.
The magic of cinema, dude.
I know. It's like when this drop should be 2 or 3 days after our chapter approved. This should be coming out on Monday. So lots of stuff again this week, right?
Yeah, it's actually
on the back of everything else.
It's so crazy because we went from like basically stagnant content for 3-ish months to now it's like, oh, try and keep up with all these rules again. Yeah. I'm down for it, I prefer that.
Yeah,
but yeah, here we are again. Mech, such a spicy book. Yeah. What do you think, Jamie? What's your thoughts?
So my initial thoughts, I haven't got the actual book. I've been reading articles, the Warhammer community stuff. I've seen some pages and stuff. Basically, Goonhammer is my go-to. When a new book drops, it's Goonhammer. I own, like from last edition, I own like Tau Codex, Astra Militarum Codex. I'll buy codexes I don't play, although I do play a bit of Astra Militarum. If I kind of like how they are, basically, like if like the lore and stuff like that, like we talked about, I'll buy books, physical books, because I like the stuff that isn't the rules. But what I've noticed, watching a couple of videos where people are discussing Admech, like people who got the pre-release, early release and stuff, reading the articles. This is once again GW hitting it out of the park, hitting this for 6, getting a home run, slam dunk. I am absolutely 100% in support, and I will fanboy gush over this particular business decision all day, every day, getting a lore-appropriate integration between the fluff of an army and the way its rules work on the tabletop. It is perfect for this game. I am so glad they are. Every codex so far is doing it and doing it well. And Admech is so preposterous. It is like there's someone made, I don't know if it was a meme, but I think it was serious, of like a bubble graph of keyword Skitarii, and then your core keyword, and then your
Cult Mechanicus, and then core Cult Mechanicus. Things. Yeah, it's so crazy.
And it just works so well. I'm just trying to read my notes here because I came up with a line which I really wanted to drop in. I've forgotten it, but it's all right. So I'm going to read it. Hopefully this will make sense. So I wrote, it's incredibly complicated and binary. Buffs/debuffs are turned on and off at strict game moments. Right, so, and that's, it's mechanical. Like, when this thing happens, this happens. Like, the light goes on, this unit is suddenly powerful, right? The light goes off, this unit is not useless, but it's now debuffed. It's a very, turn the switch on.
Yeah, I mean, the whole army is basically a giant switchboard, and you just have to be able to control the switchboard perfectly,
Yeah, you've got to be a 1940s switchboard operator, just like and
I certainly think that, as an Admech player, you probably feel like a Tech Priest Dominus while controlling the army. I don't know, what better, sense of praise you could give a book other than, as you control this army, you feel like the general of the army. Yeah. That's perfect to me.
Somewhere in my house is a red hooded robe, right? My daughter wore it when we came back to the UK a couple of years ago for my mum's wedding. My mum got remarried and she's very, as the kids say, extra. And she had this really sort of pompous wedding. And so, it was a good time, whatever. Food and drink was free, so I was happy, whatever. But my daughter was the flower girl, whatever, and she had this red robe, hooded robe, and she had to walk in it and then reveal her head. It was so extra.
Yeah.
But I was looking for it because for this video, I wanted to put it on, have the red robe coming down, get a bag. I just wanted to. I felt, you know what? I'm happy for our Admech brothers and sisters out there.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I mean, it's really good. You know, I basically echoing all your thoughts. The time with the lore and the rules is fantastic. It's an incredibly complicated codex, but it's an incredibly complicated army. I love how they've divided it all up. Yeah, I couldn't really say anything more other than what you've already said. To be honest, yeah, another really good one.
What do you think? Like the overall rules, right? The doctrina. What I don't even know anymore. Like I just get confused looking at pictures of it, let alone trying to understand it. What is your kind of first impressions of their tabletop presence, their threat level? You know, that kind of
It's an interesting one. So in the overall meta, I think Admech have gone up a couple of tiers. In the specific matchup against World Leaders, I don't think they've really changed. I think it's gone pretty lateral. Yeah.
Yes,
I think that the way that we beat them will remain largely the same, and getting stuck into them is still going to be as devastating as it was before. In some cases, more so. As an army overall, they have fantastic subdivision within it. So you have your Cult Mechanicus and you have your Skitarii, two very distinct branches. Then you have, core within each of those. And then you have your Doctrina for your Skitarii, and you have your Canticles for the Cult Mechanicus, which are kind of the same as each other, but different as well in the same way. It's really interesting. Then you have HQs, which do different things. You've got your Tech Priests and stuff. You've got your Skitarii Marshal. They operate for, the Cult or for the Skitarii. So it's a really interesting breakdown where it's like the previous 7th edition where you had two separate codexes has kind of been brought in under one roof now, but you're still feeling the distinction between them, as opposed to 8th edition where everything was just under one roof. So as an overall view, I really like the intricacies that this book gives up. I am a little bit concerned that there's probably a busted combination in there somewhere that no one has seen yet, just between keyword operations and stuff. We can't help these things. If you want the complexity, which to be honest I think most of us do want, that is a bit of a risk. But look, overall I think they're really, really interesting. I think they bumped themselves up a couple of tiers in the meta. Definitely a force that is going to be very hard for us to understand fully everything they can do, and I wouldn't suggest that anyone try to master everything the Admech can do if we're world leaders. Just have an idea of kind of what they're about, I suppose.
But that little point you made there about the busted thing, I want to see what someone like Team Brohammer comes up with when these are like the professional teams, right? They're all sitting around pulling 20-hour days with this codex, and like they've got they're like the Charlie Day meme, from It's Always Sunny with the
the math
and stuff. There is something obscene. It's like the Void Dragon on Mars, right? There's something evil and incredibly dangerous lurking deep underneath the layers of electricity and switch. The layers
of keywords.
It's there, and it's going to be horrifying when it unveils itself. I mean, there's so much to unpack here, but I think we're going to kind of cover sort of 3 or 4 main points, right?
Let's.
I'm going to kind of lead us off with the secondaries because I read through them. Now you may well disagree with my kind of thoughts here, because obviously this is at the moment we're just interpreting, right? It's going to depend on army builds and mission specifics and all the other stuff, but I thought the accretion of knowledge secondary, which let me just bring that up. Probably should have had this ready. Had my Goonhammer on the main screen for everyone here. I will have to remember to edit this correctly. But yeah, so the accretion of knowledge I thought was a legitimately good secondary. I'm about to, once I get my shit together, find out. Oh my god, they don't have a clickable contents. Goonhammer, make your contents clickable, like a Web 2.0 or whatever. Okay, secondary. Here we go. So accretion of knowledge, purge the enemy. I'll let the viewers read this. I thought it was a really good one. I don't know how competitive it is, but the rules writing, because it's where basically you kill kill a model character with a warlord trait or a relic, you get victory points.
Oh yes, I remember that one. Yeah, it was cool.
That is rules writing. That is rules writing. That is, again, it's the fluff, because it's using these non-existent things on my army, on my world. It is my gore child, or Gorefather, or brass collar, or whatever. And if this little cog boy takes it from me, of course they're going to take it back to study and learn the secrets of it.
Yeah,
because they're the Admech.
Yeah, I mean, Gorefather doesn't just drop at your feet and you say like, oh, actually, I don't want that. You know?
I mean, Khorne ordered, Dark Mechanicum, but like whoever it was.
Oh, Angron's.
Whoever.
Oh, it wasn't Kilbor Hal. It was Val something.
Yeah.
I know what you're on about. It's in the Angron book, isn't it? Or is it in
Betrayer?
Betrayer,
I'm pretty sure it's Betrayer.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, Angron orders he's like a lowly sort of like Admech sort of mid-tier guy at the time, and I just fix it, and of course, and he treats it with reverence, and I just thought that was a really good objective. I don't know how competitive it'll be. Probably not very competitive.
It's just cool though,
but yeah, it's like in a friendly
we like
game,
to see those things,
yes,
you know.
I loved it.
I'm with you there.
So I thought Eradication of Flesh. Let me just scroll down here. Eradication of Flesh. There we go. This is the one where you score 3 victory points at the end of the round if there's at least one Admech vehicle on the battlefield, and if Admech units from your army destroyed more enemy infantry than you did. So it's like kill more, but you also have to have a vehicle. I think it may have some competitive play. It's not broken, at least to my understanding of it. But horde armies, things like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Nades, Necrons.
Even something like depending on how everything levels out, something like Dark Drakari.
Yeah.
Because the
for sure.
Admech are very well equipped to pop Drakari from my amateur once overlooked.
Yeah.
Certain lists are one-shotting raiders. And I'm not saying we're changing the meta here. I'm just saying that there might be some builds in there where this is something that it will almost become like, maybe not an auto take, but like, I've got it in my back pocket.
It's just another one of those secondaries that's always worth thinking about, depending on the matchup. It's like what I said in the Chill Game Learn when I was saying about how you have this like cheat sheet of secondaries that you're considering to take against certain armies. That would just be an example of what you would write. So the Admech would have versus X, Y, and Z. Consider this secondary. So it's cool. You know, I always like to see a secondary that is a competitive option while not being an auto take or like very blatantly very good, but is good against certain things, like forcing that higher skill ceiling, that higher skill level of play. You know, where it's like you need to be aware of these things rather than just being like, well, of course I know I'm going to take this one because it's the best for everything. You know, it's encouraging that higher skill threshold is always a good thing to me.
The next two, Uncharted Sequencing and Hidden Archaeovault. Sequencing is before deployment, assign one objective marker to each battle round and write it down. So 1 through 5 on each, up to 5 of the objectives, right? And you score 3 VP at the end of the battle round if you control that one. I think that's one that could be very strong on particular maps. So it is, again, it's going to be certainly a potential one. And again, we're going to allude to we're going to talk about this after, with certain units that are going to be very good. The Skitarii, the 20 blobs of Skitarii, whatever. If an Admech list is going in this kind of board presence style, because I think there's a few ways they can take their lists. If they go for that, this, very structured. Okay, I have rounds 1 and 2 are in my deployment zone, 3 and 4 are in the middle, and if I need a 5th one, if I'm winning, I'll be in their deployment zone, and if I'm not winning, it's not going to make a difference anyway. But I think there's 9 to 12 points almost guaranteed on that.
Yeah, it's a very solid, like, fair take, you know, where it's like you'll always get some points. Obviously, you won't max it out necessarily, but yeah, it's good. I'm thrilled to see these like competitives, like not like necessarily competitive, but like worthwhile considerations.
They're better than some of the like the Dark Angels one and
the Marine ones in general are a little bit weak.
Well, no, like the Death Guard and the Dark Angels have like a secondary which is just you're just taking it because like you're getting 10 to 15 points no matter what happens, and it's like I don't want that to be. I don't want a World Eater secondary that's like 8 models die, score 8 points. Like no.
Yeah, no one wants that.
No.
Yeah.
Make me play in the World Eater style to earn points. Yes. Okay. So the last one, hidden Archeo Vault. Before deployment, your opponent picks one objective marker. You score 2 victory points if you control it at the end of the battle round, and 5 if you hold it at the end of the game. Yep. Okay. This is probably the one that's going to end up being broken because I'm not spending much time talking about it. So.
That's how it goes. Yeah, it's definitely the least interesting one overall in terms of like cool, fluffy secondaries. But look, it's there. It's not bad. Yeah.
So, kind of mentioned like the Skitarii rank and file briefly there. Tell us what you think units wise. Whether it's units you think we're going to see less play with. Because I've got some thoughts there as well, but I'm more interested in yours at the moment. Things that are going to fall out of favour, things that are going to come into favour, things that are already good who are just better. What are your kind of like thoughts on units?
Yeah, cool. So I think the key one that is probably falling big time out of favour is the Cataphrons. So while they got a little bit tougher, they are no longer infantry, which is great. They are bikers.
Yeah, thank God for that.
Yeah. That was just stupid. They are bikers. They can
still breach, though.
They can breach.
But not climb,
they can't climb, which is the main thing. Because like every time I played against Admech competitively, there was like Cataphrons in the tops of buildings, and it always just pissed me off. I hate it.
The base is so huge.
Oh, it was so, dude. It was actually. It was really annoying. One thing that's weird is they have like a special rule where it's like the tracked mobility or whatever, where they don't take the penalty for moving and shooting heavy weapons, but they're bikers. So they don't anyway. Yeah. Nice one, guys. What the hell is going on there? That's just really. Look. There's a couple of things.
From the Ashes will teach us the answer to that one, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a couple of things in this book that are not really written as well as they could be, but for the most part, it's a very good book. That's one of the things where I'm like, well, that special rule literally doesn't matter ever. You know, it's. Okay, but yeah, so like overall, they're not core, which is good because they shouldn't be. Yeah, they're still troops.
Servitors. They are not.
They're Cult Mechanicus, so they don't have canticles. They have dogmas. Doctrina, not dogmas. Right. So that's fine. Well, they are still very good offensively.
Yeah.
The problem is they lost a lot of the interactions of rerolling abilities of certain like pluses to hit, pluses to wound. Like they don't really get access to them, not being core and not being Skitarii. So I think overall they've taken a big hit, and people are less inclined to bring. Like while in certain Forge worlds, I think like Lucius, they're still very good. But you're probably not bringing 18. You might be bringing 6 or 9, which is fine because like I don't know about you, man, but like. I played against a lot of Admech lists that were like 20 plus Cataphrons, and I just found it so boring because like it was literally a case of like, okay, cool, how much will I lose before I get across the board? It doesn't really matter because once I get across the board and I'm into these guys, it's so easy to try point them, and it's just over. And it's still really easy to try point them. But yeah,
the first tournament RTT I ever played it, like halfway through 8th edition. My first game was against an Admech player. But it was the D-Day landing list, right?
Yeah, cool.
And he'd only been playing that. He'd come from Age of Sigmar and I'd only been playing 40k for like a couple of months, and I curb stomped him because I got into his line, and like not in like a brutal way. Like I just it was obviously the ITC pack rather than the GT pack, and I'd read up on it. I have 2 Admech players in my local meta that at that time I was playing a lot against, and I just okay, this is how I defeat Admech. and he didn't know his rules too good. And I think I had him by the end of turn 2, and we called it mid-turn 3 because there was nothing he could do. And like, I felt really good about myself. Like, stopping a new player, right? You come to. I didn't know until after the game that he was new. But, right. But the problem with that was because I think I won the game like 90-12 or something. It was a ridiculous.
You submarine tired. Yeah.
Well, no, I Icarus and flew too high.
Yeah.
So my second place was against a gentleman, Michael Serapati, who's one of the best players in the Midwest of the United States. And he played Admech, and he had 18 or 24 or whatever, basically the maximum amount of Cataphrons you could, right? And there was a conflict on the tables. There was someone was playing on a table that they'd just played on. So the TOs asked us to move tables. I was like, okay, it's fine. I don't care.
No big deal. Yeah.
So the table we go on is the spare table, which is an Admech themed table with Admech terrain. And if you remember, in 8th edition, Admech terrain did absolutely nothing.
Oh yeah, just loads of gantries that were irrelevant.
Yeah, just planet bowling ball with cool stuff in the middle of the... So I have an Admech gun line, which was Mars and the weird esoteric Forge world that's like semi-evil. It might be Lucius, actually. I don't know.
I think that is Lucius.
Yeah, I think it is.
I don't know.
His list somewhere. Yeah. It was an absolutely devastating, beautiful, but devastating list. And he got first turn, which was fine. And he managed to, because we were playing table quarters, and he annihilated about 50% of my army in turn 1. And there was nothing I could do. Like, I came back, and we called it at the end of turn 2 and talked it out, and I lost that game approximately 90-10 or something.
Yeah.
Because it was Planet Bowling Ball, and it was Counter-From spam, and I that was no disrespect to the player, because he's a genuinely great player, and the stars aligned for him. I mean, what was he supposed to do? Like say, oh yeah, I can't see.
Not shoot you.
He did what he had to do, and good for him. But it feels bad for me, and that was. I don't want to blame TOs either, but the terrain wasn't tournament appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, that's
so
an
it was
issue.
it was just. I'm playing a combat army against a shooting army on a essentially flat board. It was always going to go that way. It was always going to go that way, and it's not fun. It's not fun for a combat player. So yeah,
I'll raise you. I'll raise you one better. My first tournament I went to abroad was an event in England in the Element Games Gaming Centre.
Ooh, okay.
I was suitably beyond excited to be there. My first game was against a lovely chap. I think his name was Wayne. He was bringing his Admech. Again, lots of Cataphrons. We were playing Hammer and Anvil for the first mission. So, I was like, damn. Yep. So in my excitement, I made a huge... It's probably the biggest mistake I've ever made in a game of 40k. Yep. So Hammer and Anvil is already a tough deployment.
Yes.
I made it tougher by deciding that I was going to cut 12 inches off the furthest forward I could deploy, because I simply forgot that you could deploy that far forward. I think for some reason I thought it was like 18 inches instead of like whatever it was, like 30 or something. Yeah. So I was even further back than I needed to be. Didn't get first turn, got absolutely pounded. It kind of didn't go so bad because I had a Bloodletter Bomb in that, and I managed to like weirdly wrap, because like obviously coherency wasn't as big a deal. Yeah. So when they charged in, because there was so many of them and I spread them out in such a way, I like wrapped some Imperial Guardsmen that were on an objective, but I also wrapped the Cataphrons like halfway down the table.
Yeah.
Because like they were basically like, so I had this like string of bloodletters going across the whole table. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But it boiled down to like I was losing a lot on the points, and I needed to make 3 certain charges in like turn 4 to come back into the game, and I failed all of them.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, look, it was like 2 Leviathans and I don't know, Berserker Squad or something. I can't remember. They all failed, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So you win now because you get to shoot all those units. Yeah. But yeah, like they used to be really tough. I think they're still very tough for us, but
they're more balanced.
Yeah, especially just on the Cataphrons, which is I suppose what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Like they're not as popular anymore, and like they're still good. You're going to be taking other stuff. So I'm happy to still see them on the board, but in less numbers and less oppressive and less stupid. Like they don't feel as dumb as they were. Because like hell yeah, those Cataphrons should be able to blast their way through a wall. Yeah. They shouldn't be able to climb the wall though.
Exactly.
You know? So yeah. Overall.
So what about something that you think has got an improvement?
Cool. So there's a lot, obviously. There's a lot of really improved units. Like basically everything Skitarii is really good.
Yep.
But I think low-key Skitarii Rangers or Skitarii Vanguard are like max squad size of 20. The amount of buffs you can put them on.
God,
basically if there's a shooting buff in the game,
it's going there.
It can be applied to them. So you've got pluses to wound, pluses to hit. Hits on 4+ become auto wounds, extra AP, extra stuff in half range, more shots, exploding shots. It's all there. I can't tell you which is the best because it's all there. They're going to be really, really good. But I don't really care.
Oh, I know.
I'm kind of like, they're a good unit for us to be going up against, you know?
I've got a bullet point that says almost exactly that, so yeah.
So remember when I said like they're going up in the meta tier overall, but not so much against us?
Yep.
That's one of those reasons, you know?
Oh, I'm hungry.
I'm so ready to play the Admech. I think they're still going to be a very challenging matchup for us, but as new codexes that have come out and made things more difficult for us, would you say this is probably, apart from maybe Space Marines, I think this is the one I'm least worried about?
So Admech for me as a general army, 8th edition, early 9th edition now. I'll have to play against them and see how they develop. You're always wary of them because their shooting is oppressive. It is high strength, high AP, accurate. It's robotic in its efficiency. But we know that our tactics, our lists, our vision of the board is designed to use everything except our toughness and save. We will use obscuring, we will use line of sight blocking, we will deep strike, or we will enhance. We will use the tricks we have to circumvent that exactly the way we were a year ago, 2 years ago, and 2 weeks ago, right? And I'm not going to steal your thunder, but the units we would use against them anyway are doing. There'll be some defensive buffs we have to chew through, but a chain axe is cutting through everything it was cutting through 2 weeks ago. It's essentially. Yes, we will have to adapt, but we're not going to have to adapt in our playstyle versus Admech today and Admech 2 weeks ago, as we did for Drukhari on their day of release and Drukhari from 2 weeks before. And that's not to say that the army hasn't changed significantly. It's that it's the same shit, different day for us.
Yep. It's just, while the army hasn't changed, the units that are being taken inside it have. They're kind of still doing the same stuff as before. I'm actually really excited to play against the Admech. I want to see how cool their new stuff is, but I'm also confident, like a strength 6 chain axe, it's still, it's almost like one of the armies that like it's almost like perfectly equipped to go up against regardless. Like Cataphrons, I can't remember if they're tough 5 or 6, but like either way, you know, we're wounding them well. Most of the other infantry are tough 3, so wounding all of them on 2s. I don't know, man. I'm pretty okay with kind of where they're standing. I'm not like confident that I can beat them every game, but like, yeah. So I think those are the 2 units I would pick out, like as one which has gotten worse, one which is drastically improved. Because like Wrath of Mars, which has changed a lot to only do tops of 6 mortal wounds, like that's like a pretty good pick for like a unit of 20 Skitarii, you know, to get those mortal wounds, just because of the volume of shots they have. But yeah, look, I think some interesting stuff coming out for the Admech. I think like lots of. What I love about it is like basically whatever way you want to play the Admech, you can now play them. If you want to play combat Admech, you've got Ryza, which is basically robotic Sanguinius, as Goonhammer said. I think the hardest matchup for us is not actually Mars. Mars are very good in the overall meta, but Lucius is very, very tough against us. Like Lucius, you get +1 to save if your damage is 1. Most of our damage is 1. So they're negating our first AP, which is tough. And they get extra range, which makes it harder for us to avoid them. They have a relic which gives transhuman to a core unit, or sorry, it's a warlord trait.
Okay.
That's pretty crazy, you know, just
Yeah.
transhuman, and it lasts for the whole round.
Yeah.
So that's a long time.
Yeah.
They have like pick up and redeploy. They have deep striking stratagems. I think they're a very hard matchup for us.
Yeah.
They can play around us quite well.
Yeah. I agree. There's going to be issues in there, and it's so I'm going to take us into the next point now, which is about the wider meta, and my thoughts on where I think we're going to start and where we're going to go.
Yep.
And this is again someone who I don't play AdMech. I've played against them several times, and I really like them. And like we briefly talked on there, I'm less afraid that, because at the end of the day, I don't care if you're Neuro Las Cannon, whatever the hell it is doing D3 plus 3 or D3 plus 12. I know it's going to hit and wound, so I'm hiding my stuff, and like I was before, I'm hiding it again. So if you can't hit, you're not doing D3 plus 8 million. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So my initial thoughts, and I'm talking more about local metas right now, not the meta, right? Because yourself, myself, most of the people we talk to are playing in local metas, RTTs, maybe a GT here and there. I think for the start, we're going to see Metallica as a local meta, because I think Metallica are good. The Forge World Metallica.
Yeah.
I had 2 albums for Metallica.
They're fine. They're
Ride
fine.
the Lightning, and then that's it for me. But so I think Metallica, because they still seem to make the Catafrons work.
Yep.
Not
I'm with you on that.
optimum, but because I think a lot, like in my local meta, everyone was running Catafrons.
So they still have them.
Still have the models, and they haven't. Maybe they've got some Cerberus Raiders or whatever, but maybe their army is basically a Metallica army right now. So they're going to play Metallica for the next 3 months until they get the rest of the stuff built and painted.
And then it'll switch up.
Yeah. But there's another point, because Knights are perhaps starting to come back on the table. I think we may start to see Knights occasionally crop up as allies with AdMech. I think that's something we need to start planning for again. Again, Knights are another army as a model, but also as, you know, whether a separate army or as an ally. We don't really care too much about, because yes, you know, like we're developing a melter meta in a lot of ways. We can still throw a squad of berserkers at a knight and pump some CP and character support, and we're gonna degrade it if not kill it.
I mean, the damage that a drill will do to a knight is shocking in shooting and combat.
Yes.
Yeah, like not being a meme, like for real, a drill will destroy. Yeah, it'll do serious hurt, and then like berserkers are always good at fighting them.
Yep.
I'm thinking about my list. Like a Leviathan will mince them as well.
Yep. We have options, so I'm not worried about Knights, but I want to see them back on the table, because Knights just look so fucking cool.
Yeah, what I think you're going to see a lot of for the AdMech, because I don't think the big high damage Knights are really that relevant for them. Right. But like, you can use Knight of the Cog to take 3 armatures in a single detachment. I think you might see a lot of Volkite Culverins or Lightning Lock Moirax Knights.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that is a very competitive choice.
Yeah.
Again, I don't really care. I'm happy to take that fight.
Yep.
You know.
I think like we mentioned, the chickens, the Iron Strider, Ballistari, and the Las chickens and Pokey chickens. I think we're going to see more of them, because again, you know, they were a model that every AdMech player's got 2 or 3 of. Because they're just so cool.
They're so cool.
Yeah, they're just big funky chickens, right? And I think there's like from reading like Goonhammer and stuff, there's some ridiculous things that can be done with them right now, and they're a common model, and I think there's something we have to be prepared for. But again, every time I played an AdMech player, you're playing World Eaters, well, I've got some combat, I've got my chicken walker here. Okay,
yeah.
Throw it in. Sure, you kill 3 berserkers, or you blow up my rhino. Literally every unit on the table is now going to eat you. Whatever's close, whatever I've got the easiest charge to, is now going to destroy you. I just don't. there are armies whose like Sisters of Battle out-combat us at the moment, you know, with the right builds, like with their Mortifiers, Repentures.
And Flagellants and stuff.
Yeah. All the little... They out-combat us. I'm genuinely scared of combat against the Adeptus Mechanicus. Because me too. And Drukhari as well. You have to make sure you're doing your jabs right before you go in for the Haymaker. Yeah. Because if you get caught out, your sequence is over, and they've just traded up 50% point-wise against you, right? Admech, and unless I could have missed some stuff, their fighter units will either be their chicken, which... Yep.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I maybe we will develop back into a Power Fist meta on our champions. I've been thinking about that a lot on our Berserkers.
Okay.
People keep saying it, and I've been sticking with Lightning Claw, but I am in the games I've been playing. I'm starting to think that maybe the Power Fist might be back on the menu. But that's another conversation. We can have an argument about that. We'll do a devil's advocate argument in another video. But regardless, I think this is something that may affect us. Speaking of which, how do you think? Break down what your thoughts are on Admech affecting the World Eaters meta, our list style, our play style, right?
Yeah. So I think it's an interesting one. It's okay. I can't tell you for certain what's exactly going to happen. I don't have enough experience, but I think I'm just thinking about my own list with my double drills and my Leviathans. I'm very happy to bring that list against an Admech army with the new codex. I think it is a very good list. So I know when I spoke a lot about the drills initially, like the first time I kind of revealed them as an idea, I said that most of the time you're going to run them across the board, but occasionally you will deep strike them. This is probably one of those occasions because if you're facing against an Admech gunline army, you don't want them to get lit up early on. So if you deep strike those in, you're right in their face straight away. You've avoided the whole trek of getting across the board. So it's just adding to the utility of the drill that you have that option. And in this situation, I think you want that option. So I'm just thinking about it now. Like my list would basically be the 2 Leviathans, a couple of basic infantry squads, and 2 Hellblades starting on the board. And everything else would be in deep strike, So I'm fine with that because I can hide for turn 1. I can just hang out in my deployment zone and say, cool, you can't shoot me because everything is hiding. And my Hellblades and my Leviathans have been bone saves, so that's okay. I think one of the scary things about it, and it goes against a lot of the advice I've given for how to play 9th, is that you can't just hold the middle of the board against the Admech, because they will happily let you and just shoot you until you are no longer there, which will probably take 1 or 2 turns, and then move out themselves and just score. Admech, you need to rush them. You need to get in their lines. You need to shut down their shooting. It's completely changing the actual sort of movement of how we operate on a board in 9th. You need to cross that board. So, behind enemy lines might be an interesting secondary in that situation. I think that's probably the fundamental change, is that you need to make sure that the shooting elements are taken out as soon as possible, as opposed to just kind of hanging out in the middle of the board, which is, bring the drills up really close, getting the Berserkers out in their deployment zone. Use the Hellblades to movement block the elements that will be moving forward, because there will be some. So slow them down in that sense as well. And then, kill as much as you can. Hopefully it'll be... The thing about the Admech is, like, when you get into them with World Eaters, you still really, really mess them up. They still have a lot of units that are easy to try point. They have some fallback and shoot abilities, but not that many. So if you get into them, if you start tri-pointing them, tri-pointing is still the absolute Achilles heel for the Admech, because so much of their power is in the shooting phase. If you have units that cannot be shot, it's over for them. I've always found that, like, as soon as I've hit a tri-point with some units, it's just the end of the game for the Admech. And sure, you can, like, fall out with the stratagem now, but do multiple tri-points.
Do you want to know
it's
how...
not hard.
Right, so... Theory of evolution, right? A species will adapt to its environment, and the weak will fall away. I'm using very reductive language here, but the things that adapt correctly will survive and propagate.
I am familiar with the concept.
So I'm not trying to sort of explain it to you. I'm just saying, because Tri-pointing taking prisoners was huge for us in 8th edition. 9th edition comes along, introduces a way for people to avoid that. The way I've adapted in my theory hammer, I tri-point 2 units.
Yeah. It's not that hard.
No, it's like I'm not saying that's like a oh my god, big brain, but it's like GW solves a problem for the enemy. So now my unit, if I'm tri-pointing, is going to either try and tri-point 2 separate units, or I've charged 3 because I'm going to get an interrupt and lose one of them. So the other 2 will both tri-point, and then they'll pull one out, but one of my squads of berserkers or red butchers is fine.
Yeah.
And against Admech, because we're going to see infantry. We are going to see
so
infantry
much
on the table.
Big time. Yeah.
I want to hear what you want to say, but I want to read my first sentence of notes here.
Yeah, man.
Before we move on. So I'm just going to read it straight from the text here. Looking at our general meta list right now, I think Drill Gang is slowly gaining popularity. I know a lot of people are taking them on Tabletop Simulator, and they are selling, and they keep selling out on Forge World. I think we may have to adjust these for Admech, however, and really consider the Deep Strike. There will obviously be maps that favour starting on the board, but I think the crucial part of the Termite Deep Strike is the fact you don't have to disembark when arriving, which could be critical if you are well zoned out with no cover availability. Having that toughness 8 shell for a round may keep your berserkers alive just long enough. So yeah, you mentioned, because I know like your strategy has been generally keep the drills on the board, and I've been trying to follow that, but like we talked about off camera, my personal game strategy I'm developing differently. I'm already planning on now mixing either deep strike in both or deep strike in one. And when I was reading through the Admech, I was like, I am definitely 99% going to be deep striking at least one of these against Admech. If the terrain is perfect, maybe not. But I don't.
I just think that like against certain the big Admech castle gun line, even if the terrain is perfect, why would you not deep strike?
Yeah.
Because like all it means is that you'll move up the board.
Yep.
Instead of teleporting in.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be the same outcome at the end of the day, I think.
If you teleport
aside from
get a guaranteed round of shooting. Not guaranteed, but very certainly you will at least get one go with your melters and your Volkite. You may not get a second, depending on if your charge goes off. But if you're moving across the board, they will find a way to get you. They'll have the pterodactyl dudes or the Cerberus Raiders.
The Taraxi or something.
Someone will get you before you get your melters on their Onaga Crawlers or your Volkites on their Skitarii. Deep striking, you're getting a round. You can pop Khorne out next to 2 of them. You're getting incredible accurate firepower. You're withering their lines. Yeah. Sorry, man. I didn't mean to interrupt, but it was like...
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, It's very funny that, like... It's kind of happened again where it's like, yeah, we didn't really speak to each other prior to this about what we thought, and then it's like, oh, well, I guess we actually just kind of thought the same thing. But yeah, I'm glad you're in agreement with me because I think it was kind of a bit controversial to say that we don't really care too much about how this one changes things up. It's just sort of like the movement around it. But yeah, deep striking the drills, I think, I personally, I reckon we deep strike both. If it's a combat Admech army, so if they're bringing like Ryza or Lucius or something, fair enough, maybe start them on the board. But if it's like Mars, if it's Agripiana, if it Metallica, I would be deep striking both.
100%.
And I'm just like, that's another great reason to bring the drills because I have that option.
Yes.
I go to a tournament most of the time. Sure, 4 out of 5 games I start them on the board, and then the one game against Admech, I'm like, cool, I can deep strike, and I know I can do that, and that alone is enough for me to be like, yeah, why am I taking randos anymore? I think that's kind of the main thing. I mean, we don't need to worry really about the thing I was saying with the Drakari about like picking your trades and stuff like that.
It's a different ball game here.
It's a different ball game, and it's very similar to the 8th edition game we played against the Admech, I think. It's just obviously... Yeah, sorry, go on.
I want to read, because I know I know we need to wrap up. So I want to read this as well, because this is just, again, this is what you said earlier and just touched on again. Berserkers will still do the work here. Sure, Admech can stack buffs and negative modifiers, but we, Caps, still don't care. No matter how high an invuln or negative hit modifier, we just keep hitting. The only debuff I ever care about against Berserkers is not being able to get their first round of combat in. So bring it on, right? I think we're going to need, I think as a World Eaters army, we're still going to need a healthy mix of combat, Daka, and Melter equivalents, right?
Yeah,
because
I agree.
Admech bring it all. They bring the T7, they can bring the T8, they're huge amounts of T3 and potentially Cataphrons, T5. They're bringing every type of target, and we're generally equipped to take any type of target, but we want to focus. We want the drills to have that availability to come up, pop 5 melters in, the Daka bots or whatever tough unit we can get near, and the Volkite to thin the ranks. Maybe we disembark, because I double checked my Forge World book, and the wording is specifically can disembark. So we can disembark one squad of Berserkers, charge what's within 9 inches, maybe, have a Warlord jump out with a violent urgency, get an 8-inch charge, and we're in their lines. Now they've got this huge problem over here, while the rest of our secondary army now starts moving out to take points. So I'm not saying we've suddenly beaten Admech, but I think we've already started to formulate our strategy to develop. I think, now here's a little controversy. Raptors are obviously still good, because again, they're another unit that's going to chew through T3 units, right? However, and this is based maybe on me getting my ass kicked a few times with this, I think Warp Talons might start to be back on the table. I think the 5-up invuln, the volume, now I know a lot of theirs is -1 and -2 AP on their small arms fire, but there's some combos in there which are making a kind of like souped up autocannon type. The combination of Daka and AP. So it's like, well, the opposite of an autocannon, I guess, because they get the AP. And the Warp Talons with the invuln, and the Lightning Claws just wrecking. Like, Lightning Claws wreck. And I know that we're paying a premium for Warp Talons, but I've had 2 games with them used against me. The Apoplectic Frenzy has been far... Whilst they don't score the victory points, they destabilise the line. And the Admech are going... They are a very regimented army. They have their lines, they have their lieutenant, like Skitarii Marshal. Marshal, They are like a kind of modern military, like a 1920s, 1930s military unit with their little groups of little shooty robots and a commander and like a strict hierarchy. And we need to get in that and destabilise it. And like you said earlier, fast units getting up the board. So I've got my biker list, and it's not tailored for Admech, but I think it will work against Admech because it's very fast, as fast as World Eaters can be. So I'm not saying Warp Talons are something good. I think we need to go back to the drawing board and reconsider these units we may have dismissed.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I can't really fault any of that, to be honest. I think the disruption is the key thing that you said. Once you start disrupting them, it's not quite game over, but pretty close to it for them. So, yeah, I can see the play for the Warp Talons. I just think, like, in a tournament setting, if you don't play the Admech, it's a feel bad because you're like, oh, here they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
games,
you kind of said it though, where it's like when the Dark Elder book came out, it took a while for us to get our heads around it. I'm already like worked out pretty much how I want to deal with the Admech. Yeah, scheming hard. Yeah, I don't know, dude. Like, I can see how some armies would be really worried about this army, but I'm not.
I'm eager.
I'm just not. Yeah, I'm eager as well. Yeah, I'm ready to play them.
This to me feels like, okay, I can punch up here. Like,
yeah.
Drukhari, you'll punch up and they just dance out of the way. Admech, they're robots. They just stand there and they take it, and then eventually the head comes off. You punch it enough, that skull. There's a skull under all that metal, so it's there to be claimed.
Yeah, overall, I think it's there's some little tidbits of kind of things that we need to change up, as you mentioned and as we said. But overall, it's kind of the same matchup as before. just some things need to be tweaked, and you need to be worried about different units instead of the ones you might have previously been worried about. I would say that's like the main thing in my opinion.
Yeah, I independently of us talking, I was like, okay, you know what? I love this codex, but I am not shitting myself about it. I'm not gonna go. I'm gonna treat Admech with the utmost respect, like I always have, because they are a hard army for us.
Yep.
But they are not significantly harder, like we said, today than they were yesterday or last week. So you know what? Like I said, we make some tweaks, we adjust, we change our target priority. T3 still dies in the drones to us, and we don't give a shit about your T7, your T8, because we're re-rolling wounds, we're power fisting you at strength 10. Whatever we're doing, we have the tools to kill Admech. We just have to command our armies properly.
Exactly, man. You hit a nail on the head. Butcher's nails into my own head.
There we go. All right, I think any closing thoughts? Right, I think we've pretty much covered.
No, I actually think that was a really nice way to close it out. To be honest, you covered everything in one nice go there.
That's it, folks. Just take their heads. That's all you got to do. That is it. That's the thought we're going to leave you with. All right, folks. So thanks, Dara, for coming on and chatting with me today.
No problem, man.
So everyone else, don't be worried about the Admech, okay? Stay healthy, stay safe.